Two friends, Alan Dale and Jerry Carew, who grew up just a few streets apart in St. John's East End, have been separated by Canada's geography for 3 decades. They came together virtually during the pandemic to chat about like-minded interests. Alan lives in PEI and Jerry in Newfoundland. Thriving in remoteness has been a common theme for both of them during the pandemic. Gale Force Winds, the podcast is the result.
We're talking to the coxswain of HMCS Windsor. You should know, Jerry, HMCS Windsor is a diesel electric submarine, and the coxswain is an electrician. So he's got an important role as the coxswain, but he also has to understand the battery system on board this ship intimately. Jason, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Jason Thompson. I grew up originally in Dartmouth, just across the harbour. Joined the military after worked a year doing concrete, and I decided it was probably a better choice in the military as an electrician than doing concrete for the next 40 years.
So there you are.
At this point, I feel like I made the right choice.
So Jason, you joined the Navy to see the world in Dartmouth, and you got across the harbour.
Yeah,
that's about it, eh?
Exactly. Yeah. I definitely got to see a lot of places though since I've been here. That's for sure. Other than Halifax.
So Jason, tell me about what it means to be the coxswain on board a submarine. That's a pretty important job.
Yeah, so day to day I'm dealing with administrative issues with the submarine. I'm with the command triad with the captain and the XO.
Yeah.
A people person, try to keep everybody kind of coming to me and talking and making sure that everybody's in a positive mood and a positive state of mind.
Yeah, Jason, you picked up on a good point there. Keeping people talking. That's got to be important on board a submarine. I mean, your commanding officer just talked about you kind of run out of things to say, but communication in any workspace is incredibly important. I can only imagine when you're working in such tight quarters and really doing some serious business, you want to be talking.
Oh, 100%, definitely. You got to keep the conversation lines open because people down there, you're fairly isolated. Obviously, a small crew. So when you're at sea, there's only so many people that you can talk to, and to open up and be able to have that conversation two-way, it's a nice thing to be able to do.
Yeah, 100%. Jason, you've been in the service a while, in the submarine service a while. Tell me about your transition from Oberon class now into the new class of submarine.
Yeah, so I originally qualified on the Onondaga in March 97. I got here in August 97 and then got my Dolphins in March 98.
Yeah.
And it was quite the transition. Flew to England and lived there for almost 2 years to bring these ones back. I actually brought this submarine back from England, to Windsor. Yeah, it was originally the Unicorn. So
yeah.
Brought that back over. It was an interesting time over there. We away from family for a while, but it was also exciting to be over there. Pretty neat to see a new country and live there for a while.
I'm going to ask a pretty green question. When you're sailing across the Atlantic, how much time are you below the surface, on the surface? I'm sure there's a lot of people wondering about that.
We were below for the majority of time coming back, and normally that's where submarines like to be, is below the surface. I don't know, you see the shape there, it's not quite aerodynamic on the surface. She's a little bit bit wobbly on the surface.
She bounces around a little bit.
Underneath it's just like walking around at home. So
you always laugh at anyone to say on the Toronto that gets seasick, because you could pretty get that must be something.
That's that's on the surface, but below we're golden.
So tell me about that experience in the UK. So you're over there for a couple of years, taking the boat from the Royal Navy and transitioning it into the Royal Canadian Navy. That must have been a very unique thing.
Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah, we had some really good instructors over there. There was some old British submariners that were teaching us. We were down daily on the boat doing basically qualifying again on the boat. All of us that went over already had Dolphins on the Oberon class, and then we were re-qualifying on these ones. And it was definitely quite the experience. I enjoyed it. It was excellent.
So that's a little bit of a trip from Dartmouth. Then okay, we got him over there. Yeah. That's good. Now tell me about being an electrician on board a diesel electric submarine. That's got to be an important job.
Well, that's the heart of the submarine, isn't it? Really, the battery,
100%.
Right? We keep the submarine down below the waves. It's excellent. It's very satisfying. It's a lot different than the ships. I know, like a lot of the courses that we do, it's all ship related, where they don't really cover a lot of this stuff. So we come down here. As far as when I was doing it, we were allowed to do a lot more than what you could actually even do on the ship. So we were given a lot more, room to move and stuff and maneuver. It was excellent. Yeah.
Right on. Jerry, your thoughts?
Well, it's fascinating. I think we don't have enough time to get into it all, because I would love to have 1/1000th of the knowledge that you have of the operation of batteries and electrical work and then, the submarine. But it's just fascinating to chat with you, and I appreciate what you're doing here, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, appreciate having me. It was awesome. It was actually an honor. You seem like fine gentlemen. It was a nice interview.
We try.
Yeah.
Jason, I can't begin to tell you, I sure am glad you didn't enjoy that concrete job and you decided to join the Navy and be a part of this honorable work you're doing, man. And you got to be very proud of yourself, and thank you very much for your service to Canada. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Back into the interviews with the crew on board HMCS Windsor. I mean, fascinating stuff that these guys do beneath the waves, keeping our nation safe and secure. What interesting work it must be. And I can tell you, if there's people watching the podcast and they're looking at the Navy as an opportunity, you need not look much further than the submarine service, because I can tell you, if you're looking for adventure, that's where it exists, right behind us. Our next guest, we're really looking forward to a conversation with him. Marcus, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Marcus Hibbert, a Petty Officer Second Class, Senior Sonar Tech on board Windsor, and originally from the Miramichi.
Right on. What part of the Miramichi?
Chatham, actually.
Right in Chatham.
Did you ever think you were going to be on a sub when you were growing up in Miramichi?
No, we obviously had the Air Force base there, so I was accustomed to being around the military and that, and it was mildly intriguing, but I didn't ever think Navy was in the books for an option for me.
So Marcus, where did it all come from? You're up in the Miramichi. How do you find the Navy?
Well, I went out west, worked for a few years. I came home to help with some family issues and decided one day I wanted to join the military. So went down to the recruiter here in Halifax, got talking to him, and the next thing I know, I was then on board a boat. And
so how did that recruiter convince you the Navy is your option?
They highlighted a lot of the high points that you get with here, the camaraderie, the travel, the ability in the coursing, the things some of the options you never get to see in the civilian side of life. So it was all enough to convince me I wanted to come down.
Yeah, that's a good story. Now, Marcus, you're a sonar operator on board a submarine. It doesn't take too much to put two and two together. That's probably a very integral job to the whole operation. Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, actually, I'm a sonar technician, so I fix them and
you
keep them running.
Right, okay.
But my primary job is to maintain and make sure we can still see everything we need to with the sonars. When we're diving, surfacing, so
You can certainly operate it too, though, if you're the technician, I would imagine. Hey?
Not as well as I fix them.
Not as well as you fix them, eh? Well, that's great. So in the Miramichi, you're going through life up there. You find yourself out west. Now you're in one of Canada's amazing platforms, serving our country. What are some of your most memorable moments on board the submarine, or even indeed in the Navy?
It's going to have to be the people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great things you can say about the Navy in general. The submarine is second to none for us for what we've got, but the people are by far the deciding factor for anything down here.
Right.
Having served sailed both on the surface and down below, camaraderie is key here.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
So how do you keep that camaraderie on board a boat underneath the waves, and how do you keep that friendships alive and all of that?
Oddly enough, the sub seems to attract a lot of the same personality types.
Is that right?
From all across Canada, all different things, but primarily the people are, I hate to say the same mindset, but personalities mesh fairly well.
Yeah, like what kind of personality traits would you have to be a submariner?
Patience, I would imagine. Would that be one?
I haven't seen a lot of that on board. When I do, I'll let you know.
Okay.
But people are very outspoken, very open. Camaraderie, the joking is phenomenal.
You can't have a thick skin, I bet, in a submarine.
Thick skins are not recommended here. They like it if you take, you've got to be sensitive and open to all the things that you have as options as emotions.
I think you're a bit of a character. Do you have open mic night down and below the waves at all?
No.
That's a great way to summarize it. Jerry, your final thoughts with Marcus?
I just enjoy your humor, listening to you talk about teamwork. I mean, Alan and I interview a lot of different types of people, business, and teamwork is really important. But you know what you're doing for the country, again, I said it to the other guys, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, there you go. Another great edition of Gale Force Winds, talking to a sonar technician on board one of Canada's submarines. Vital work. that Marcus provides his country under the waves. Unbelievable. I certainly am glad that recruiter at the Halifax Recruiting Center convinced you to join the Navy, and we really do appreciate your service. Thanks very much, Marcus.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Back on YC451 in Halifax Harbor, talking to the crew of HMCS Windsor, and what an engaging group they are. You can tell that these are serious fellas doing serious work for Canada. Unbelievable. But you know what? They all got a sense of humor. There's an edge about them, and I really enjoy getting to know them. We're now going to talk to the executive officer of the submarine. So Jay, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jay Finlayson. I'm the XO on board the Windsor behind me here. I grew up in Northern Ontario, kind of out of the way from the oceans, but was raised by my grandparents quite a bit, and both sets of grandparents lived on the water on Lake Huron and Lake Superior, so I spent a lot of time with my grandfathers out on the water, and it's kind of where I started the love for the water.
What part of Northern Ontario? People are going to want to know.
Yeah, near Sault Ste. Marie, small towns, one family near Wawa and the other was on St. Joseph Island.
Right on. So granddads were interested in the water, and that intrigued you?
Yeah, everybody seemed to live on the water where I grew up, lots of lakes. And my one grandfather on my mother's side ran a marina, so I spent a lot of my summers hanging out with him and learning the ways of the water there.
And at what point did you point your finger towards the Canadian Forces Recruiting Center?
It was a bit of a whim, to be honest.
Okay.
I was 27 years old, married, and just kind of looking for, a better life, something to do.
Right.
And started looking at different options, heading out west, working in the oil fields. I was working as a heavy equipment mechanic for a few years. And then the Navy kind of was there. So
Right.
I just did some research and walked in, and lo and behold, there was a submariner as the recruiting officer, and he told me all about the Navy, which I didn't know we had.
Right.
And the submarines, which I certainly did not know we had. So it kind of started there and
Wow.
spiraled into this.
What recruiting center was that?
London, Ontario.
So London, Ontario, there's a submariner there, and he introduces you for the first time, really, to the Navy?
Yeah, absolutely. I basically had no idea.
And right, and so Jerry, on that point, and Jay, thanks for bringing that up. That's why we're doing this, is because there's people that still don't know Canada has a Navy, and we certainly do, with amazing people in it. Man, we've met many of them along the way. Not only do they not know we have a Navy, but they're not quite sure what exists in that Navy. Well, I can tell you, there's some impressive platforms that do exist in that Navy, and more important than that, there's impressive people in that Navy. So tell me about when you joined the submarine service.
So in 2013, I joined the submarine service. For my trade, back then you had to qualify completely as a lieutenant on board the surface ships, so I did that, and then was looking towards doing something a little more my style, a little more blue collar than white collar kind of upbringing. So there was a couple submariners, ex-submariners, that were part of the engineering department on Athabascan, and they told me about the submarines and how I'd fit in there, and they thought it would be a good venture, so did some research and joined up, and here we are.
Jay, are you an engineer by profession?
No, I'm a naval warfare officer.
Okay, so you're a naval warfare officer, but you wanted that blue-collar work, you say?
Yeah. Hydraulics and pneumatics were my bread and butter before I joined. So
you're not that interested in the bookkeeping and all that kind of stuff?
No, definitely not.
I hear your point, Jay. It makes me want to vomit.
It's kind of my job, but
Yeah.
looking forward to the next job.
Yeah, that's why Gale Force One has got great revenue. I'm not a good bookkeeper, just so you know. Jay, I take your point, mate. That's great. Yeah. Jay, sounds like you've had a great little journey there from Wawa, Ontario. You're part of a great group of guys. We met some of these fellas earlier, and it really is impressive. We often ask our guests on Gale Force Winds to leave us with one small piece of advice. Now, you're a guy who started up in Northern Ontario. You joined the Navy a little bit later, perhaps, than most. You found yourself in a pretty interesting space and time, and now you're the executive officer of one of Canada's most impressive platforms. What would that piece of advice be, Jake?
Just take chances and follow your gut and your heart. That's what I've done, and it kept me safe. So
there you go.
Works
Jerry.
Good. That's what I teach my kids.
There you go. Jerry, your thoughts?
Well, I just want to say, Jay, you know what? I have nothing but respect for you and your crew and this country. Isn't it an incredible country we live in? I just am in awe. As a 17-year-old out in BC, getting up to some shenanigans with you as a naval officer, we just appreciate what you're doing here today, and thanks for getting on with two fellas like us. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Well, there you go. Another great edition of Gale Force Winds, talking to Canada's submariners. What an interesting group. Unbelievable, the work that they do, the platforms they have. And Jay, you hit the nail right on the head. A lot of Canadians need to know that we've got a Navy, and I got to tell you, it's a great Navy with great platforms. And if you're somebody that's looking for an adventure and an opportunity in your life, I don't think you should look much farther than the Royal Canadian Navy. Thank you to the crew of HMCS Windsor for a wonderful edition of Gale Force Winds. We are here on location on YC 451. You can Google that and find that interesting platform on the World Wide Web. We have the pleasure here today to speak to some of, well, really, truly Canadian heroes, guys that do their business below the ocean. And I can't wait to speak to some of these guys. Drew, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, how you doing? My name is Drew Matheson. I'm originally from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. I was born and raised in Glace Bay. I spent my time growing up involved with the Sea Cadet organization, where I learned to sail.
That's
for
a
the first
common
time.
refrain we hear, isn't it?
100%,
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of my youth in the summers actually sailing across to the Shearwater with the organization. I had a great time growing up in and around Halifax Harbour. It was the first time I got a chance to see Navy ships, and that's what piqued my interest to potentially carry it on after I graduated high school.
So Drew, you're a young fella, you're in the Sea Cadet organization. What was the name of the Sea Cadet Corps?
I was in RCC number 86 Dreadnought.
Dreadnought, right on. Well, as Jerry said, it's a common theme. It's unbelievable how many people came through that. It's a fantastic organization, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, 100%, absolutely. It's a great way for kids when they're growing up to get outside, their comfort zone or what's offered in their hometown. They meet a lot of new friends, and they get to experience a lot of new things.
Yeah. So Drew, you probably spent a lot of time up in Cornwallis.
I did. I spent 2 summers down in Cornwallis. One I was down for sailing, and the second I spent out there instructing sailing.
So you're out sailing around Halifax Harbour, and I guess back then they would have been Oberon class submarines that you would have been looking at. Is that what kind of inspired you to this life?
No, I didn't see my first submarine until after I joined the Navy. So I was 2 weeks in the military, and I saw a picture of our new submarines, the new Victoria class that were coming. I asked the question if we had them, because I wasn't sure that we had them at the time, being only 2 weeks in the military. The answer was, well, we don't have them yet, but they're coming. I said, can I do that? And the answer was 100%. So I knew from about 2 weeks in that I wanted to be on submarines. And
is that right?
They made it here, yeah.
2 weeks into the Navy, and you knew that's where you wanted to go?
100%.
Well, that's fantastic. So when did you first join the squadron?
I came down to start my initial training in 2006, 2007.
Right.
And then after my initial training up at the school, you have your basic introduction into submarines. Then you wait into the queue to get on board to do your sea training. And after you get your package done at sea, you get awarded your dolphins and you become a full-fledged member of the crew. Right. And then you get posted to a boat officially and start your sailing career.
Right. And there's a name they have for the commanding officers course, right? What's the name of that course?
So the submarine commanding officers qualification course, the SMTC is what it's called.
Yeah.
Is nicknamed Perisher.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
The course itself?
Yeah.
The course was great. What the Canadian Navy does for submariners to prepare them to be able to challenge Perisher is quite good. Our training program is robust enough to be able to meet the expectations when we send our sailors over to get ready to take command. Yeah. The course itself spans over about 5 months period. Canada participates in 2 of the courses, so there's one by the Dutch and there's one offered by Norway. I partook in the one that was offered through Norway.
Right.
What that involved, I went over in January and stayed there for about 5 months.
Yeah.
I got to ride on the Ula class submarines with some world class submariners.
Right.
And they put us through some top notch training. It was a great time. We got to sail up and down the Norwegian coast and participate with another multinational exercise up the coast of Scotland.
Wow. And what Drew's not telling you, Jerry, it's pretty hard course. Okay, so
well, it's called a Perisher course. I would expect that's the case.
Quite a feat to get through. So now, Drew, you are the commanding officer of Windsor, directly behind us. Tell me how that feels to be the commanding officer of one of Canada's submarines.
Oh, it's a great job. I can't sum it up in something. You need a longer podcast, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
But I get the chance to work with some of the best sailors I've ever worked with in my entire life on a platform which is it's unique. Yeah. It's unique to the Navy. It's unique to most navies around the world. Being on board a submarine and getting to exercise and operate in the way that a submarine operates is a chance that not everybody gets to take. So being privileged enough to jump on board and go out and accomplish all of the exercises and operations with the crew that I have on board has been absolutely fantastic.
Drew, Jerry and I just came back from a journey on HMCS Toronto. We got to meet the commanding officer there, and there was a really connection. He had a real connection with the crew, tight family. You could tell on board that destroyer. It's got to be even so much tighter on board a submarine. Would you agree?
Oh, I would definitely agree. There's a few reasons for that. We don't have internet on board, so after you've been at sea for 2-3 days, we run out of things to talk about. So you get to know everybody really well. And you don't really have a choice, which is good. The crew on board, you hit it right on the head. Super tight. There's not a lot of us coast to coast. So I've sailed with quite a large group of our submariners, and you'll find that as you go and you interview more people around throughout submarines, you'll find that's a common theme. We all know each other fairly well. Right. We've been on most of the same operations and exercises. And you have no choice but to get really close to a group of people like that.
Right. How many on board, Drew?
We've got 48 fitted crew on board.
48 people.
Correct, 48. We have the ability to take an additional 11 on board.
Okay.
If we have sea training embarked to get us ready for an upcoming program, or if we need to take future submariners into the training program,
right.
They get embarked up forward and they sleep in the weapons stowage compartment while they're training.
Jerry, final thoughts?
Well, I'm flabbergasted, actually. 48 people, and you can take an additional 11. That's phenomenal. Well, we just came from DEFCEF Atlantic, and I was inspired by the entrepreneurs there, but I continue to be inspired by people like yourself, Drew. Thank you very much for keeping this country safe.
Hey, thank you very much. Absolute pleasure.
There you go, another great edition of Gale Force Winds. Not very often you get a submarine commander on your podcast, but we sure are happy. And I hope the folks at Glace Bay are watching right now, because that's an unbelievable journey you've had, my friend. Congratulations, well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's Gale Force Winds, WINS.com.